You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday the 2nd of May. Love Music Hate Racism artist caught selling pirate DVDs at local school car boot. Cameron's father-in-law warns Lord's reforms could lead to BNP peers. May the 9th, Qatada Appeal. Ken Livingstone is living in the past, says Labour peer. Scandal of £140 million surplus from licence fees for BBC. Thousands of Europeans take to the streets on Labour Day. Marine Le Pen refuses to back either of the French presidential candidates. Aung San Suu Kyi sworn into Parliament at last. Thought for the day, our anti-social society and nationalism. UK news. It has been reported that Aaron Aniyah, who performs under the name of Aaron Soul on the notorious anti-white Love Music Hate Racism gatherings, has been arrested for selling fake CDs and DVDs of stars including Beyonce and Boys to Men at a car boot sale in a Hampshire school car park. A PCSO saw them and called Gosport-based PC Stephen Hill, who was on a patrol nearby, to come and have a look at his stall. PC Hill also became suspicious after looking under the stall and spotted a large holdall full of discs as well as the ones on display, and arrested the 31-year-old. Officers searched Anya's home and found a computer tower that was capable of making up to 11 copies of CDs or DVDs at a time. The total loss to the film and music industry from these discs alone was calculated to have been more than £1,600. Anya was ordered to do 80 hours community service. The father of 5 also works with young people on advice on how to stay out of trouble, whilst no doubt organising protests about the British National Party in his part of the south of England. Talk about hiding behind youth and music. Cameron's father-in-law warns Lord's reforms could lead to BNP peers. It was reported by the Telegraph that Cameron's father-in-law has attacked the government's plans to reform the House of Lords because it could give the British National Party its first seats in Parliament. The Lib Dems, the main advocates of elections to the Lords, want the elections to the reformed Lords to be conducted under a form of proportional representation, the single transferable vote. In his speech in the House of Lords, Viscount Astor noted that a joint committee that examined the government's proposals has suggested the reformed Lords should have 450 members. On the basis of recent opinion poll findings, that House would have to have about 45 UK Independence Party members and 10 British National Party members, he said. The judge panel of a European Court of Human Rights is to meet on May the 9th to decide whether the hate cleric Abu Qatada's appeal should be heard at the Grand Chamber. It may be then that Theresa May will finally have the courage to ask, "Will no one rid me of this troublesome priest?" Ken Livingstone is living in the past, says Labour peer. Lord Desai, the eminent economist who defied Tony Blair 12 years ago to back Mr Livingstone rather than Labour's official mayoral candidate, told The Standard, "London is changing so fast that I wish the Labour Party had found a better candidate." Lord Desai also questioned Boris Johnson's abilities and record as mayor. I wonder who that leaves, since the favoured candidates are so unworthy. The BBC amassed £140 million worth of surplus from licence fees. The Guardian reports that our ever-favoured BBC has built up an expected £140 million worth surplus of licence fee payers' money, according to internal figures obtained by the newspaper. These figures also suggest that the corporation's commercial side, including BBC Worldwide and BBC World News, is expected to deliver £290 million worth of operating profit. The reported surplus comes as 2,000 job cuts are planned at the BBC as part of a bid to save £800 million. A BBC spokesperson, who would not comment on the surplus figures, said, "The BBC has had to balance its books just like any other organisation." A World at 8 writer commented, "Not bad for a left-wing propaganda machine for the masses." Euronews. Labour activists have been holding marches and rallies in Europe and around the world to mark May Day, at a time of austerity and social unrest. Politics coloured events in France, one of the Eurozone's dominant states, which elects a new president on Sunday. In Greece, which elects a new parliament the same day, a march through Athens passed off peacefully. Thousands of Spaniards took to the street of Madrid and Barcelona to protest against cuts and unemployment. Scuffles broke out at a rally in the Italian city of Turin, and there was some friction in the Greek capital Athens, but, in general, the demonstrations appeared to pass off peacefully in Europe. International Workers' Day, as the 1st of May holiday is known officially, is meant to be a celebration of working people worldwide. Vote blank, states National Front leader Marine Le Pen, as she refused to back either candidate in the country's presidential election runoff on Sunday when she addressed supporters in Paris. Ms Le Pen, who came third in the first round last month, said National Front voters should vote with their conscience, but added that both President Nicolas Sarkozy and his challenger, the socialist François Hollande, would surrender power to Europe. Attacking Mr Sarkozy's 5 years in power and the ruling UMP party, she said she would vote blank. World News. Burma's Aung San Suu Kyi sworn into Parliament. Aung San Suu Kyi completed her historic journey from political prisoner to parliamentarian Wednesday, assuming public office for the first time in a risky new strategy to work alongside Myanmar's new reform-minded government after her 25-year struggle against military rule. Suu Kyi's party refused to take its seats in the Assembly last week because they opposed wording in the oath that obliges legislators to safeguard the constitution. The party, which has vowed to amend the document because it enshrines military power, wanted the phrasing changed to respect. The party have compromised for now, jointly reciting the oath in the capital, but that small needed change underscores the huge challenges ahead in a nation dominated by the military. Thought for the day: our anti-social society and nationalism. Well, the GLA election time is almost upon us, with the usual mixture of a complete media blackout in the Nationals, except for the predictable arrest of Mike Whitby, the Liverpool mayoral candidate. This was a small paragraph at the end of some news about Boris the Bleached One in the news yesterday in the Mail. Really, the London candidates look like an advertisement for hair colour. We have Boris the Blonde, Red Ken and our own brunette Carlos. Come on, you know you are worth it. The lengths the establishment will go to try and to prevent or implode us nationalists is extreme. Even under this quasi-Marxist, liberal, fascist government, if there is such a mishmash of words, this expresses them exactly. We live nowadays in a watched society. The name of the party, who shall not be named, very rarely is, except when someone manages to bring up some imaginary fault and the boys in blue have to act on it. Poor Mike's home was searched and of course he was freed. But the Mail did not mention that, just the fact that the BNP candidate had been arrested for fraud. Complete and utter nonsense. But that is what we are up against in this country, indeed our country now. In the past, communist governments have got away literally with murder on a huge scale in many countries, and it is rarely, if ever, mentioned. The fascist governments of the last World War are rarely off the television. The Catholic Church and its lapses from grace are illuminated, but the murders and atrocities committed in the name of Allah are ignored. We have this double standard which reaches deep into the European psyche, again planted during the First World War, in that everything we were was bad and everything we must embrace is good. A total Frankfurt School of Indoctrination takeover. Brilliant. Communist murderers, Labour paedophiles, it doesn't matter, as long as they embrace the mantra of change and multiculturalism. They can get away with anything as long as it seems to be good for the masses. Unfortunately, this is not the case, as the last few decades have shown for Europe and indeed us on our little island. On the news yesterday was a hymn of hate against Rupert Murdoch. Now, it was uttered by a Labour MP, and I am not condoning phone tapping. Hell, they've been tapping BNP phones for years. But it would seem to be a sad fact for those very rich or famous people that poorer people like to know what they eat for breakfast, etc. I frankly couldn't care less. The Leveson inquiry is just another phony investigation to hang people out to dry who have displeased the establishment, and poor old Rupert has done just that. He is a known Republican and a self-made man. The Labour MP said in short, Murdoch should no longer run a company. Well, it might be me, but he seems to have done very well so far, but has fallen foul of, yup, the UK establishment, and probably will no longer be allowed to purchase Sky B or whatever, which was the whole point of this blow-up in the first place. So now you can see what the British National Party is up against, can't you? This country is apparently the most desocialised country in the world. Fine, We would all rather stay at home with our televisions and computers than go out and meet friends. Well, although I know a portion of that to be true from our somewhat diminishing numbers actually attending meetings, it is really down to money. Only in England do we pay such high taxes, petrol taxes and public transport. Only in England is the no smoking ban observed to such a degree, resulting along with the ever increasing price of drinking out of one's home, to the hundreds of public houses closing every week, there are very few places to meet one's friends. Put that with a maniacal police force watching every move from pubs and clubs, and there you have installed a Marxist curfew throughout the country. This applies to our middle-aged, working and middle classes, not sloppy Sally Snodgrass drunk in the gutter at 1 o'clock in the morning. The English working classes used to meet in pubs, the middle class in their homes and the gentry anywhere they like. But take away or make out of reach the three essentials for those get-togethers, no proper pubs, no petrol and no money, and you've done your worst. And now to cap it all, we are all being accused of being terminally lazy by some sort of poll. Who do these polls target? Man on the street who cannot speak English? We as nationalists are also up against certain types of people within our own party. First we have the eternal optimist. This person believes deeply that the Antichrist will appear and lead the party to eternal power and subsequently does absolutely nothing in the meantime. Then we have the cuckoo. This person works hard then stops abruptly. He hides within the party, siphoning off people and thoughts and takes them back to his nest. He is waiting for, like the eternal optimist above, a golden age, when he can take control of a ready-made party on which he has had to spend absolutely nothing, no time, no effort and no money. Then we have the know-it-all. This person has it all and knows it not. The time will come mantra is the badge of this guy. Poor old Enoch's speech has never had it so good. Everything will be solved when the people take things into their own hands. Oh yeah? So if you want to see our streets resemble a minor African kingdom or a Muslim hellhole, I wouldn't. This person also sits and waits for what they think is inevitable, apart from the old blog spot of course. Now these personas above only account for a minute portion of our officials, members and activists. As a political party I believe we have a majority of the most loyal and hard-working people in this country under our flag, and I would never hear a word against most of them. We have people who have put their money where their mouth is and put their heads above the parapet in public, never an easy thing to do in the current climate of this country. Which brings me back to the main point. When will the English realise they're in a socialist country? We live in a fascist state and it isn't ours. Try to be honest and you will come a cropper. Fascist, they yell. Express concern over immigration and racist, they cry. It is a sad fact. If the British had ever got off their bums to vote, we would not be in this state in the first place. Politically motivated is the only peaceful way to go, which is why the establishment do not want us to be more politicised. Thence the busing of African and Asian ethnics to key areas. Hence the overkill and apparent overhousing of peoples in small London flats. The missing postal votes. It all adds up. And I hope deeply that the general population of our country does not allow apathy and ignorance to take all that they now hold dear from them and their children. And finally, a lost budgie was taken home after it recited its entire address in full to a police office. The bird escaped from a house in the Sagamihara district of Yokohama on Sunday morning, Kyodo News reported, and made its way to the city centre. After finding its way into a hotel, it came to rest on the shoulder of one of the guests before it was apprehended. The hotel handed the budgerigar over to the police, who put it in a cage and transferred it to a nearby police station. Despite giving no indications that it could talk, the bird suddenly piped up late on Tuesday night and began repeating its home address, which its owner had apparently drummed into the bird for just such an unlikely eventuality. The lost budgie was returned to its owner. We had not expected his owner to be identified in this manner, one of the police officers involved in the case said. Good luck to all our candidates for tomorrow, and I'm sure all their hard work will pay off. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozar, and I wish you all a very good night. For selling fake CDs and DVDs of stars including Beyonce and Boys to Men at a car boot sale in a Hampshire school car park. A PCSO saw them and called Gosport-based PC Stephen Hill, who was on a patrol nearby, to come and have a look at his stall. PC Hill also became suspicious after looking under the stall and spotted a large holdall full of discs as well as the ones on display, and arrested the 31-year-old.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Moser. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday the 2nd of May. On Labour Day. Marine Le Pen refuses to back either of the French presidential candidates. Aung San Suu Kyi sworn into Parliament at last. Thought for the day, our anti-social society and nationalism. UK news. It has been reported that Aaron Aniyaya, who performs under the name of Aaron Soul on the notorious anti-white Love Music Hate Racism gatherings, has been arrested. Love Music Hate Racism artist caught selling pirate DVDs at local school car boot. Cameron's father-in-law warns Lord's reforms could lead to BNP peers. May the 9th, Qatada Appeal. Ken Livingstone is living in the past, says Labour peer. Scandal of £140 million surplus from licence fees for BBC. Thousands of Europeans take to the streets. Officers searched Anya's home and found a computer tower that was capable of making up to 11 copies of CDs or DVDs at a time. The total loss to the film and music industry from these discs alone was calculated to have been more than £1,600. Anya was ordered to do 80 hours community service. The father of 5 also works with young people on advice on how to stay out of trouble, whilst no doubt organising protests about the